now joined, as promised, by the COO of the NPCI, Praveena Rai, right here live on Startup Central. Thank you for joining us this Friday evening. 6 years of the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. You can say this was the foundation, the building blocks for a new financial inclusion architecture. It is now being used, of course, for direct benefit transfer and all of that. It was perhaps also the building blocks for what you folks built, the UPI. You've also, of course, rolled out the RuPay. You have overseas ambitions. But just the way you've heard the Minister of State for Finance, Anurag Thakur, talk, how the Prime Minister has been speaking, more than 50% of these accounts are held by women. More than 60% of these accounts are in rural India. Have we just scratched the surface of fintech, scratched the surface of financial inclusion, of digital payments, or micro lending? There's still a long way to go.
Yeah, that's right. So thanks for that, Nayantara. The Jan Dhan accounts were a very important component of the JAM Trinity, which really formed the basis of the entire digital stack and the revolution that we are seeing on digital payments, as well as the digitization of banking services in India today. Now, the Jan Dhan accounts, and we've heard this now many times, more than 40 crore accounts that have been opened, very easy, simple to open, zero balance, no charges. But the purpose of these accounts was really to create and increase inclusiveness and bring people who had not had the benefit of being in the banking ecosystem until such time. And I think that's the biggest credit of the Jan Dhan account delivery of 40 crores. And what did this do? First and foremost, it gave access to people to receive benefits. And when they receive benefits, they need to utilize the money that is there in the account. The two most popular products that we have seen for Jan Dhan holders would be, one is the PMJDY card. So these are debit cards that are issued for each one of the accounts, nearly about 290 million odd cards that have been issued till date. The cards that can be used at an ATM, with a PIN to withdraw cash, can be used for any kind of purchase. This is quite, extensively used. And of course, the Aadhaar-enabled payment system, which permits people to go to any bank mitra, any business correspondent outlet, use their thumb biometric to withdraw cash. So these are the two most popular cases, that we have seen. Clearly, a number of fintechs out there in the market who are supporting this cause. We've seen the biggest benefit in many scenarios. We've seen it during the Orissa floods. We've seen it in a number of disasters, and nothing as important as what happened during the pandemic of the last few months. More than 30,000 crores of benefits reaching 8 crore plus people, very seamlessly outreach through the AEPS program. So what we have seen till now, I think, is just the starting point. It's 6 years since the Jan Dhan program was achieved. So the core infrastructure, the basic accounts are open, the cards are in place, the Aadhaar infrastructure enablement is available, but there is a lot more to go. We are looking at how UPI can play a increasing role here. You know that Jan Dhan, the objective is not just the account. Jan Dhan is also about creating value through saving. So one data point that has come out from a recent research that we conducted is about 20% of the account holders today are actually looking to retain the money in their account. So earlier, the behavior would have been that, if there is a benefit transfer that came into the account, the cash was withdrawn because there was a requirement to deploy it immediately. But as the maturity of the system improves, people feel more safe, more confident. 20% are actually retaining and building savings into the account for deployment. And they also know that they have the tools available that they can then have access to those funds to make payments as and when they need to. As we move forward, we see applications in the space to support, micro insurance, micro investments, micro pension, all very inherently extremely important to the Jan Dhan scheme itself.
Okay, so now it's very important information that you're giving us, the retention that you're actually seeing when it comes to the Jan Dhan account. So Praveena, I want to ask you once again, the massive opportunities that exist in rural India, which is the amount of new accounts that have been opened, the massive number of accounts you have, the massive number of accounts that are retaining the balance as well. So for all the entrepreneurs, startups that are tuning in here, what would your advice be for how these fintech startups can look at rural India, can look at micro lending, can look at financial inclusion?
So the core banking services are available. The accounts are in place. They have been layered over with the payment rails that are available. As I mentioned, there is the RuPay PMJDY cards, the Aadhaar enabled system, UPI programs. So it's about building now value-added propositions over these layers. I pointed out a few. For example, if you look at UPI AutoPay, it's a big enabler for micro insurance, for micro investments. When people are slowly building up a small kitty of savings, the most inclusive thing to do is to give the opportunity to also have the benefit around, investments and protection with insurance in play. But also, livelihood. So, for example, if you look at one of the schemes that we are very excited about, that the government has announced recently for hawkers and street vendors. This scheme is, while it uses the word street vendors, it's an open scheme really to drive livelihood for people, small micro entrepreneurships. They have access to their bank account. There is a overdraft facility that the government is supporting with some subvention. They will be able to take a UPI QR, for example, enabling access to credit, as well as being able to make their repayments very seamlessly for this purpose. So these rails and these schemes and opportunities provide the enabling environment for a number of service providers to operate. And as we look at, you mentioned the percentage of women, more than 50%, percentage of rural population, more than 60%. Clearly, these services cannot be the one size fit all, that we use for throughout the country. So, focusing on voice-based services, focusing on clearly vernacular services, I think these would become very important components when fintechs are looking at servicing the population that has been empowered with the Jan Dhan accounts now.
Okay, I've got a question coming in here on Twitter where one of our viewers, Kevin Peters, has written, should UPI as a start be seen as a public utility? Is there a need to open up frameworks to privatize the service? What is the incentive for the private player to effectuate interoperability? Anything you want to tell the ET Now viewer on this question?
Okay. We are a public good. So UPI is operated as a public good today, and it is fully interoperable. So, for example, if you look at this entire base of Jan Dhan accounts, they are all linked to UPI. And UPI, the model itself is an enabling model for innovation and fintech operators. So, for example, if somebody wants to provide a voice-enabled service, that creates the opportunity for people to use voice to make a payment, that kind of a service can be very easily provided. So I think the answer to all of that is yes, and it's really meant to create the innovation at the last mile, to then enable both commerce, enable livelihood, enable remittance, all kind of use cases that UPI can power.
I've also got to ask you this one question. Look what just happened with RuPay. Look at what has happened with UPI. Like I said in the introduction, you have someone like Sundar Pichai praising it, wanting to build it in for America, for the world. And you've got NPCI now having global ambitions. I think that was made quite clear recently. You're also looking at micro-lending, unified KYC norms. Any updates you want to give us?
in the Jan Dhan perspective, we have our hands full, and as you had mentioned before, a lot more work to be done by the entire ecosystem to really truly deliver to the power and opportunity for inclusiveness in the space. And there's no better case study than what we can learn from India, and any success that is created in India is a very good case study, very good framework to take globally to other markets. So I think that's sort of the start of the journey, we are in the midst of. And yeah, we'll take it from here. And the focus is, of course, always to give the best to the home ground.
And I know you've given some advice, but do you also feel that, when we've seen this explosion of fintech, maybe we need to go a little more into figuring out the credit worthiness? Is that an area of concern? Micro lending is the buzzword these days. Digital payments is the buzzword. We've got to make sure that we don't have NPAs building up in the digital ecosystem.
So I think that's where these mechanisms are available today. So earlier, if you had just given cash to somebody, you don't have too much of a mechanism to perhaps monitor or control the purpose for which the lending has been done, and then a mechanism by which automatically the collections can be executed. Those solutions exist today, and in fact, the street vendor scheme that I referenced before actually incorporates a number of these elements. And it's going to be executed, on the ground by the microfinance institutions, by a number of parties, who are there, and the last mile will ultimately, win in terms of how successful this is. So it's going to be very important to make credit work in the segment. And today, the power of data, power of rails, and the kind of solutions that can be designed, we are in the best place possible to make that happen.
Praveena Rai, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know you promised us 10 minutes, and I've taken more than the 10 minutes that you had promised, and thank you for indulging us. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, lots of news that's coming in, the way UPI is headed, the plans at the NPCI. We're getting you the COO on the 6th anniversary of the Jan Dhan Yojana, and clearly we've just scratched the surface. You're getting advice from the NPCI itself on how all you entrepreneurs and startups in fintech can actually grow and be a part of the digital story in rural India.